Ambassador Reeker, thank you so much for being here. So I guess, first of all, I would ask what your assessment is of this sort of framework deal that we've learned about today.
Well, thanks, Julie and Josh. It's great to join you today. Look, I think this is important. The timing was great in terms of coming out on the 80th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day, just reminding us what the U.S. and the U.K. together can accomplish. I think this is a first step. Clearly, what I saw from the White House and the announcements both by the Prime Minister and by the President was that they've talked about the things they're going to talk about. They've outlined crucial things. They've sort of announced that this is the first of many deals, as President Trump has promised for a while. And then we're going to have to see, what kind of details emerge, what evolves in terms of vehicles. The steel and aluminum question remains out there. Digital services tax looks like there's maybe some room there. A lot of things still to be defined. I don't want to take away the idea that they've made a big first step with the United Kingdom, but much more to see what comes.
So Ambassador, when President Trump, listen, he calls this a breakthrough. I mean, do you consider this a breakthrough? Is it a win for the Trump administration? Is it a win for the U.S.? Or is your point, it's too soon to say?
I guess I'd have to go in between, like a good diplomat. Look, it's great that they're able to announce something. Clearly, some work has been done. It's early days to see what really comes from it. I think the fact that there is talk, there is negotiation going on, that in itself is a win. There's opportunities here, and the will of both sides to reach some sort of agreement is clear. What will come in the end will have to be carefully looked at in broader context, and we'll see where that leaves us. The 10% tax across the board, that is the tariff, remains in place. And we'll see what kind of exceptions and other things can be developed on the broader relationship. But, a good day for the U.S. and the U.K. to celebrate the opportunity to move ahead together on this.
Ambassador, I have sort of a nuts and bolts, nitty-gritty kind of question here about these trade deals getting done. And not just getting done, but then all of the details being worked out, as we've been talking about. I'm curious about the numbers of people it takes to do these, because working on one deal with the UK is one thing, but they're also going to be working on potentially a deal with China and India and Vietnam and Mexico and Canada and effectively every country in the world. So how many, what numbers of people does it take to do all of that? And does that staff even exist? How does this all work?
Well, in my experience, I came from the State Department, which has a certain role in this. And obviously at our embassies, when I was in London, there was a lot of talk about trying to find ways forward on trade. That was already in the early days of the Biden administration when I was interim ambassador there. Under the Trump administration, we've been looking at ways to try to have a broader agreement with the United Kingdom after they had left the EU through Brexit. Most of that work goes on through the USTR, the Trade Representative's Office. And I think it was crucial that they are staffing up. They've got some people in place. And we hear from our contacts in the trade world and from other countries that with USTR on board, there is a little more focus, there's more expertise. That said, as you pointed out, Julie, there's a lot of agreements to be done. There are only 24 hours in every day, and people have bandwidth to deal with this. You've got talks going on with China. That'll be crucial. President Trump mentioned those. You've got an EU delegation here, the Director General for Trade, in Washington this week, looking at possibilities there. So a lot of work, and it does take a lot of people. The devil is always in the details in these kinds of agreements. You can just imagine the size of some of these agreements. A 3-page summary from the White House gives you an oversight and a shot at where they are aiming to go, but we'll have to see how they get there.
Politically, Ambassador, I'm curious, how do you think this trade deal plays at home for Prime Minister Keir Starmer?
Well, it's important, I think, that he's shown that he's able to deliver engagement from the Trump administration. He had a very good meeting here some weeks ago in the White House. Of course, he brought the invitation from King Charles for President Trump to visit the United Kingdom again. full of, I'm sure, good pomp and ceremony, which is befitting for our two countries and the strong, long-standing relationship and alliance that we have. I think he's been able to show that they're taking very seriously efforts to engage in reducing tariffs that have a very negative impact on certain British sectors. You saw Rolls-Royce jet engines, for instance, specifically mentioned, as well as certain makes of automobile. It's early days to see this, but I do think the Prime Minister has something to be pleased about, to bring the attention of his constituencies to, as well as the White House, which of course has made this a fairly high-profile announcement today.
And finally, Ambassador, your experience was not just in the UK. You also served in various diplomatic roles across Europe. And so I'm curious what you're expecting now from the European Union, given that this agreement has been struck, and also the idea, to go back to Josh's political question, a lot of political, what seem to be certainties around the globe have been upended in part by folks pushing back against President Trump. And so how is that all going to play out as the EU now tries to navigate the situation?
Well, it's interesting, Julie, that you bring that up, because I did have a chance to meet with some European officials this week and talk to them about that. What struck me is that they remain very ready for engagement. They're very prepared for engagement, to consider rebalancing where that's necessary, certainly to listen and try to determine what it is that the Trump administration really wants from the tariff regimes, from these steps on trade that have been taken early in the administration. They're clearly ready to negotiate. They make quite clear that they're prepared to have 0 for 0 in terms of tariffs, something that has been talked about by the Trump administration as a longer-term goal. I think we're hearing here in Washington that 10% tariff across the board that the administration announced early on is likely to stay. That means, of course, there'll be reciprocal tariffs, but on other areas, there's room to look and negotiate and see what may come. There's also a desire to create more predictability, more certainty. That's what's roiled markets, where you have this, very frenetic tariffs being announced, tariffs being suspended, complicated charts that show who has what tariff when. As you know very well, that's not something that the private sector and business likes. They want to know certainty. They want to know what to expect. They want to know when and how they can ship their goods, and that their supply chains are safe and well preserved. That's, I think, what they'll be looking for from the EU, but from all the other markets during these days. And I would add just that I think it's also important that the UK and the EU have seen themselves to finding a better way forward. They had some very difficult times after Brexit. There was a lot of acrimony and hurt feelings from the Brexit argument, certainly during the government under Boris Johnson. I think it's important that the UK and the EU are finding their own way forward, and that each of them then will deal with Washington in a rational way to try to bring some more predictability to global trade and the transatlantic relationship.
Ambassador, so good to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for your time, sir.
It's a pleasure. Take care.